In December of 1998, a boy, his father, and his grandpa would go out looking for a Christmas tree. One of them would never return. This is the story of Derrick Engebretson. Derrick was born July 5th, 1990, to his father Robert and his mother Lori. Derrick was well acquainted with the outdoors, even going on a bear hunt as young as 1 week old, while his mother Lori carried him on her. As Derrick grew, he would go on hunts with his father, Robert, and go gathering mushrooms with his grandfather, Bob. He was used to hiking up to 20 miles in a day. Derrick had even been given the name Bear Boy because of his love for the wilderness. Also, as many kids in the 90s did, Derrick loved the Goosebumps book series. And up until this story begins, Derrick had had a seemingly normal childhood in the Oregon wilderness. On December 5th, 1998, Derrick, Robert, his father, and Bob, his grandpa, would set out to find a Christmas tree. They would arrive at a wooded area above Upper Klamath Lake in southern Oregon, near Pelican Butte. This was a familiar area for Derrick and his family, as he had gone to Pelican Butte several times to hunt for mushrooms with his grandpa. This year was a little different. Lori had decided that she didn't want the mess of a natural Christmas tree and opted for an artificial one. Even though Robert and I imagine Derrick were disappointed, it ended up being a neighbor that would ask them for help getting a real Christmas tree, as the neighbor was disabled and wasn't able to get it on their own. Robert, being the kind neighbor he was, agreed, and he, his father, and his son Derrick would go find a Christmas tree. The three drove Bob's red Toyota pickup. Robert recalls saying that they couldn't stay long, as it was already past 2 p.m., and at that time of year, the sun was going down and it would be dark around 4. There was a turnout at milepost 12 where the boys pulled over and would begin their tree hunt. Robert would hop out and help his son Derrick get his snowsuit on. And then they started hiking up the wooded hill. Robert, being the stronger one, decided to hike up ahead and had Derrick stay with his grandpa. Derrick had a small hatchet with him, in which he would hack at little small trees and branches around while he was hanging out with his grandpa. As kids usually do, it seemed like he was starting to get impatient and started asking his grandpa if he could go ahead and catch up to his dad, Robert. After a while, his grandpa gave in and allowed Derrick to run up ahead to catch his father. At around 3 p.m., Robert and Bob would meet back up near the car. Each of them would kind of have a moment of, "Where's Derrick?" Robert recalls saying to his father, "Dad, my son is missing." At this point, the snow was falling pretty heavy, and Robert headed off up the hill, yelling for his son. He got no response, and at 4:13 p.m., Robert reached the road and was able to flag down a driver. The driver agreed to call 911 for Robert, but that would take a little bit of a drive, about 2 miles down the road, to reach the resort. That evening, Robert, his family, and the authorities would search for Derrick. Robert and his family would find tracks. These tracks had led from where Robert had last seen Derrick to a little clearing near the road. In that clearing, there was the remnants of a snow angel that was believed to be Derrick's. This is where the tracks had ended, unfortunately, as a snow plow had actually come through and cleared the road. It's my opinion that at this point, Derrick didn't feel like he was in danger, feeling safe enough to play and make a snow angel. He had also been using his hatchet to make little cuts on little trees around the clearing. There was no real sign that he had left that area. Robert was a firm believer that Derrick had never gone back into the woods. At this point in time, The family believed that someone had picked him up, but authorities disagreed. Several days after Derrick had disappeared, a candy wrapper and a bookmark for the Bonanza School had been found in the area near Rocky Point, which is where he went missing. There was also blood of an unknown origin found in that area, but whether it is human or animal has not been revealed. The items were also not able to be confirmed to belong to Derrick. Derrick did, however, go to the Bonanza School, and his family lived in Bonanza. There was also a small shelter that had been made of fir branches and fallen trees. Tracking dogs were brought in to see if anything belonged to Derrick. The dogs did not detect his scent. Hundreds of people had volunteered, and authorities, doing ground and aerial searches, but no sign of Derrick was found. There was also a hole in the ice of Klamath Lake, and it was discovered that there was a footprint near the bank. However, they had divers search it then and again in the spring, and no sign of Derrick was there. After 8 days of Derrick going missing, the official search was called off due to the temperatures dropping. At this time of year, there was a lot of snow, including the day Derrick went missing. 5 to 8 inches had dropped that night. Authorities also believed at this time that if Derrick was out in the wilderness, he would not have survived at this point. Robert and Lori continued the search for an additional 7 days with around 100 or more volunteers. Temperatures went below zero. Unfortunately, after around 7 days, they had to stop the search. This was December 18th, 1998. For the next 2 years, Robert would drive to Rocky Point every weekend looking for his son. He and Lori would meet up and mark off places on maps where they had searched. They still recovered no sign of him. It was seeming more likely that Derrick had been taken that day he disappeared. There were a few things in this case that the community had an issue with. One of the issues was that the day that 911 was called, it took over 5 hours to get the search and rescue team going. And this was apparently due to there being a Christmas party for search and rescue. And they wanted to make sure that it was warranted before they broke it up. I share this anger for the fact that it was getting dark, it was snowing, it was a little boy, and he had already been missing for an hour when they were called. So it's time to get your ass over there and look. Some people in the community believed Father Robert and his father Bob were responsible for Derrick's disappearance. However, they did submit polygraph tests and they were not considered suspects. Authorities at this point had concluded that Derrick must have succumbed to the elements and that animals had scattered his remains. The issue with this is that none of his clothing or bones have ever been recovered. The Engebretson family continued to believe in the possibility of abduction, and the authorities did eventually look into abduction as well. There was a witness who came forward that claimed that they saw a man struggling with a little boy that day on the road. The witness just believed it to be a father and son, but after finding out about the disappearance of Derrick, reported it. An unidentified man was also seen driving a black Honda. He was in the area and had stopped to ask for directions. In a cruel twist, there was graffiti discovered in Burns, Oregon, that had alluded to the fact that Derrick had been killed and buried. This was in 1999. The exact wording of the graffiti was never released, but the FBI did take samples and concluded that it was just a sick joke. In 2004, a man named Frank Milligan, who was a convicted child rapist, did confess to killing Derrick. At the time of Derrick's disappearance, Frank was actually out on bail from an attack of an 11-year-old boy in Seaside, Oregon. Frank had agreed to lead authorities to where Derrick was buried. This seemed like some sort of breakthrough for Lori and Robert, who went up to the area and met with authorities. They went to Silver Falls State Park, and the FBI were there and used ground-penetrating radar to look for remains. They searched for several days, but found nothing. The assistant district attorney had then informed Lori and Robert that Frank was given a deal, that if he had pled guilty to the murder of Derrick, he would avoid the death penalty. When he was set to do the paperwork, Frank recanted his confession. Lori and Robert do not believe that he actually killed Derrick. They do still believe that Derrick was kidnapped. In 2018, on the 20th anniversary of Derrick's disappearance, Robert and Lori were both interviewed. They both hold out hope for some answers, and I'll read something that Lori said. Lori had stated, "I want to believe he's still alive to this day, and until somebody shows me something different, I don't think I'm ever going to give up on him." Thank you for listening. I hope I see you again sometime. Bye.